Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. I'm Smriti Rastogi. India and China have agreed to hold the next round of meetings on matters related to the boundary question. This after Prime Minister Narendra Modi met Chinese President Xi Jinping on the sidelines of the BRICS Summit in Brazil. The 21st round of the India-China border talks, led by special representatives, National Security Advisor Ajit Doval and his Chinese counterpart, and Foreign Minister Wang Yi, were held in China in November last year. During the 21st rounds of talks, both sides resolved to intensify and advance the dialogue for an early settlement of the boundary dispute. What is commonly referred to as a border dispute between India and China manifests itself in two distinct and separate areas of contention. One is Aksai Chin, and the other is Arunachal Pradesh, much of which China claims as Lower Tibet. Today in In-Depth, we will talk about the latest on the border talks between India and China, how many times the talks have been held till now, historic position of India and China, and the flare-ups between the two sides. After a meeting between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping during the recently concluded BRICS Summit in Brazil, in an official statement, the two countries have said that they are ready for further talks on the issue of their borders. More details in this report. As Prime Minister Narendra Modi met Chinese President Xi Jinping on the sidelines of the 11th BRICS Summit in Brasilia, India and China agreed to hold another meeting on matters related to boundary issues. According to a statement by the Ministry of External Affairs, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Xi noted that the special representatives will have another meeting on matters relating to the boundary question and reiterated the importance of maintaining peace and security along the border areas. The statement, however, did not mention the time frame for the next round of boundary talks.
The question of border with China, there is this very high-level representatives forum in which they talk. From our side is National Security Advisor, and from their side is again a very high-level person. At the meeting of Prime Minister Modi with Xi Jinping in Brasilia yesterday, they emphasized that this meeting is going to take place soon.
This year's talks were expected to be held in September in India, ahead of President Xi's visit to Chennai for the second informal summit with Prime Minister Modi at Mamallapuram. But it did not take place due to scheduling issues on both the sides. These talks were elevated to a high-level political dialogue between the special representatives in 2003.
Since 1975, not a bullet is fired. It's a long border. We have different claims on the areas there, but they have managed to have tranquility on the border. And there was a face-off in Doklam. But after that, again, Prime Minister Modi and Xi Jinping have met several times. And yesterday's meeting, they emphasized the need for, constant communication and dialogue. And Prime Minister Xi has been invited again to come to China for an informal dialogue. The dates will be fixed by diplomatic channels. So this high-level dialogue and high-level communication, which touches on these issues, is a harbinger of greater stability and reassurance in bilateral relations.
The 21st round of India-China border talks, led by special representatives, National Security Advisor Ajit Doval and his Chinese counterpart and Foreign Minister Wang Yi, were held in Chengdu in China in November 2018. During these talks, both the sides resolved to intensify and advance the dialogue for an early settlement of the boundary dispute. The two officials also emphasized on maintaining peace and tranquility at the border, making use of a number of mechanisms worked out to improve relations between Indo-Chinese troops on the ground.
We do have a large undisputed border. We have several 100,000 troops along that border. So the main game is to ensure that those border problems don't spin out of control and result in either accidental military confrontation. We've already signed 4 border military agreements with China. But after the Doklam crisis last year, the view is we need now to upgrade those agreements to ensure that, for example, now if China has a problem with a third country like Bhutan, India and China have to work out those rules. So it's not a friendly relationship, but it is a relationship of 2 countries that really don't want to cause problems with each other.
The Special Representatives' talks are the highest official level forum with a mandate to discuss not only the solutions to the boundary issue, but also other issues concerning the 2 countries. The India-China border dispute covers the 3,488-kilometer long line of actual control. There are around 20 places along the LAC where the claims of both the countries overlap, besides Aksai Chin and Arunachal Pradesh, which China claims as its own territories. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV. India has been seeking a fair, reasonable and mutually acceptable settlement of the boundary question on the basis of 2005 political parameters and guiding principles. In the past, India and China have held 21 rounds of talks on the issue of border dispute, where India has assured Beijing that the borders would remain unaffected until the 2 sides mutually resolve the border issues.
The India-China border dispute relates to the 3,488-kilometer-long line of actual control. For several decades, both countries have been engaged in talks to resolve this border dispute. As many as 21 rounds of talks have been held since 2002, when both sides appointed special representatives to sort out the border dispute. Even prior to 2002, several rounds of talks were held without any concrete results. The last round of border talks were held between National Security Advisor Ajit Doval and Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi in November 2018 at Chengdu in China's southwestern Sichuan province. In the 21st round of talks, the special representatives of the 2 sides undertook a comprehensive review of the earlier rounds of talks. The special representatives resolved to intensify their efforts to achieve a fair, reasonable and mutually acceptable solution. Both sides underlined the importance of approaching the boundary question from the strategic perspective of India-China relations and agreed that an early settlement of the dispute serves the fundamental interests of both countries. They agreed to authorize the bilateral working mechanism on consultation and coordination for border affairs to hold consultations to work agreements. It was also agreed that pending the final resolution of the boundary question, it is important to maintain peace and tranquility in the border areas. With a view to maintain strategic communication at all levels, special representatives held discussions on various confidence-building measures to promote exchanges and communication between the border personnel.
You know, when you have difference of opinion or difference of positions, how do you move forward? You move forward by dialogue, by talks. You say this is what we feel the border should be, and they say what they feel the border should be, and you look at wherever adjustments can be made so that the problem is resolved. So these are very extensive dialogues because the border is very large. There is western border, eastern, central, and there are many aspects of it. And the high-level representatives go through these aspects meticulously. Now, the purpose of this meeting is to manage the border. They know that, and the whole purpose or the strategic direction of the relationship is to manage differences and to give a more stable and better environment for development of relations.
In June 2019, following a meeting between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Xi Jinping on the sidelines of the SCO Summit in Bishkek, special representatives of both countries were asked to speed up discussions for a border settlement that is acceptable to both sides. Both leaders stressed on a quick, constructive and driven by larger context solution to the decades-old boundary dispute. A month later, both sides reviewed the progress made in the implementation of various confidence-building measures to maintain peace and tranquility along their common borders. The review was done at the 14th meeting of the Working Mechanism for Consultation and Coordination on India-China Border Affairs in Beijing. The two sides also reviewed regular exchanges at the troops level and also at the diplomatic level. The Working Mechanism for Consultation and Coordination was established in the year 2012 as an institutional mechanism for consultation and coordination for management of India-China border areas, as well as to exchange views on strengthening communication and cooperation, including between the border security personnel of the two sides. Headed by senior officials, the WMCC mechanism has become a major platform between the two countries to exchange views on strengthening communication and cooperation, including between the border security personnel. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And with that, we'll slip into a very quick break. Stay with us.
Tales that inspire. Stories of social change. A salute to diversity. Promoting public discourse. Events that motivate. Inspiring the innovative spirit. Watch Rajya Sabha television documentaries.
Ministry of Steel has issued the steel scrap recycling policy.
The government has shown its intentions, all credit to it. Government has got both the ministries on board, all credit to it. Government has been able to identify, all credit to it. Now, real work starts. Legislation is okay, administration has to take.
This scrap, the two things are happening. One, it's coming within the ambit of the economy. And second, this scrap can be effectively utilized for future production. You've got such a large import bill on scrap. So job creation, direct, there'll be some direct benefits clearly, but I believe the indirect benefits will be much larger.
Steel is going to be a major mover and shaker of this economy. I do believe that consumption of steel, reusable steel, converting scrap into steel and making steel more efficient use is going to help the economy in general and is bound to create jobs in every sector.
Watch The Big Picture with me, Vishal Dahiya, at 9:30 p.m. on Rajya Sabha TV.
Welcome back after the break. China and India have a long history of territorial disputes along their shared border, with the 1962 conflict being the major one. More details in this report.
China and India have a long history of territorial disputes. The shared border has seen three major conflicts: the Sino-Indian War of 1962, the Chola incident in 1967, and the 1987 Sino-India skirmish. The biggest of these conflicts was the war in 1962. Perceiving a threat to its rule in Tibet, on July 10, 1962, 350 Chinese troops surrounded an Indian post in Chushul in Jammu and Kashmir. On October 20, 1962, China's People's Liberation Army invaded India in Ladakh and across the McMahon Line in the then Northeast Frontier Agency. Till the war actually started, the Indian side was confident that there would be a no war. Chinese troops attacked the underprepared Indian side and entered Aksai Chin, which thereafter became a disputed border area between India and China. Relations between India and China deteriorated for the rest of the 1960s and the early 1970s. In late 1967, there were two more conflicts between Indian and Chinese forces at the border in Sikkim. The first one was the Nathula incident and the other was Chola incident. On September 11, 1967, Chinese and Indian forces clashed at Nathula when Chinese troops opened fire on a detachment of the Indian soldiers tasked with protecting an engineering company that was fencing the north shoulder of Nathula. Over the next 5 days, there was an exchange of heavy artillery and mortar fire between the Indian and Chinese forces. 62 Indian soldiers were martyred. Indian and Chinese forces clashed again in Chola incident. On 1st October 1967, Indian and Chinese soldiers had an argument over the control of a boulder at the Chola outpost in Sikkim. On 10th October, both sides again exchanged heavy fire. Casualties were reported from both the sides.
And there's a real problem there in terms of actually moving forward on finding a solution. On the other hand, they have not regressed. We have not seen any major problems break out. But the fundamental issue remains that the original idea, for example, in the 1980s under Deng Xiaoping, was that we would be conceding Aksai Chin to China. They would surrender their claim to Arunachal Pradesh, which they call South Tibet. Since the early 1990s, however, China has insisted that Aksai Chin is no longer part of the dispute, and the dispute only revolves around Arunachal Pradesh, which is something that India finds unacceptable. So therefore, the talks remain stalemated, if you wish, on that key point. That China has a claim but is not prepared to consider even talking about Aksai Chin.
In 1984, squads of Indian soldiers began actively patrolling the Sum-Dorong Chu Valley in Arunachal Pradesh. In the winter of 1986, China deployed their troops to the Sum-Dorong Chu before the Indian team could arrive and build a helipad at Wangdong. Surprised by the Chinese occupation, India's then Chief of Army Staff, General K. Sundarji, airlifted a brigade to the region. Chinese troops could not move any further into the valley and were forced away from the valley. By 1987, then Foreign Minister N.D. Tiwari and Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi travelled to Beijing to negotiate a mutual de-escalation. The Doklam standoff in 2017 became the worst crisis between the two sides since the 1962 war, lasting as long as 2 months. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
After a long lull of over 30 years, the border tensions between China and India peaked in recent years. The most notable incident was the one in Doklam in 2017. Let's see what it was all about.
In June 2017, a territorial dispute with China came alive as a full-blown standoff at the Doklam Plateau. This continued for the next 2 months amid reports that suggested China was increasing its military presence in the area. Doklam, or Donglang in Chinese, is spread over nearly 100 square kilometers. It comprises a plateau and a valley at the tri-junction between India, Bhutan and China. It is surrounded by the Chumbi Valley of Tibet, Bhutan's Hao Valley and Sikkim. Doklam is located close to the Siliguri corridor that connects India with its northeastern region. It is also called Chicken's Neck and is a vulnerable point for India. China is at a military disadvantage since both Indian and Bhutanese troops are on a higher ground around the valley. Bringing the area under its control gives China the strategic advantage of not only getting a commanding view but also easy access to Chumbi Valley and the Siliguri corridor.
When Doklam was happening, India was very restrained. India maintained its position, but said and held its ground, but nothing more. The Chinese side waited, and they realized that India is not intending to escalate or the dispute. So it was successful. And then Wuhan, the Prime Minister met Xi Jinping, and that spirit of Wuhan now suffuses the relationship between India and China. And in Brasilia, both have emphasized that aspect.
Trouble started on June 16, 2017 when China tried to build a road in the area. Bhutan objected to Chinese troops bringing equipment to extend a road towards the Bhutanese army camp near the Jamperi Ridge in Doklam. Bhutan also told China that a road inside its territory directly violates bilateral boundary agreements. As an ally of Bhutan, India was drawn into the standoff after Bhutan requested its help. Indian troops entered Doklam and stopped the construction. Thereafter, media reports citing satellite images and intelligence inputs suggested that China had erected several permanent military posts, a few helipads and new trenches. On June 30th, the Ministry of External Affairs said such construction would represent a significant change of status quo with serious security implications for India. The Chinese government released a map to accuse India of trespassing into its territory, claiming India was impeding boundary talks between China and Bhutan. The claim, however, doesn't stand since Bhutan has agreed to let India guide its foreign policy and defense affairs, making it a protected state of India. In 2007, it signed a new friendship treaty that made it mandatory for Bhutan to take India's guidance on foreign policy. On 28 August 2017, India and China announced that they had agreed to pull their troops back from the face-off in Doklam. China has in the past been guilty of incursions in Ladakh at the Depsang Valley in 2013, the Chumar area in 2014 and the Pangong Tso in 2017. It has claimed that this has been due to the absence of a clear demarcation of the line of actual control. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And that's all we have for you in this edition of In Depth. We will be back same time tomorrow with a focus on another key subject. You can also watch our program online on YouTube. Suggestions and feedback about the program are welcome. Thank you for your time.